up in chapter 27, we're told what happened. Now, the next day, the one after preparation day. Does anybody know what the day is after preparation day on the Jewish weekly calendar? It's Sabbath. So you prepare on Friday for not doing anything on Saturday. Matthew throws in another wonderful detail about our good religious friends who have done such a wonderful job being obedient to God in this mock trial and crucifixion of their Lord and Savior by saying, on the Sabbath, you know, the day they're not supposed to do anything, the chief priests and the Pharisees went to Pilate. Sir, they said, we remember that while he was still alive, that deceiver said, after 3 days I will rise again. So give the order for the tomb to be made secure until the third day. Otherwise, his disciples may come and steal the body and tell the people that he's been raised from the dead. This last deception will be worse than the first. Take your guard? No. Pilate says, take a guard. Go make the tomb as secure as you know how. So they went and made the tomb secure by putting a seal on the stone and posting the guard. Now the question is, did Herod give them the right to post their own men? Did he allow them to deputize the mall cops for the night to protect the tomb? Or did he say, take one of my centurions, but this is your operation. You seal it so you know it's been sealed, and this is your baby, that you can take my centurions. It's important because of what follows. When they run back, the story is conceived. The story of what happened is, well, in the middle of the night, while we were all asleep. There's a problem with that if you're a Roman centurion. Do you know what the problem with that is if you're a Roman centurion? You're not allowed to sleep on duty. And the idea that the entire centurion would be asleep is some major red flags. Now, if you're Gomer and you're used to sleeping at night and you're being deputized, maybe it's true. Maybe, it's a more reliable story that they fell asleep. The problem, though, is why do you have to buy off the guys who already work for you? Because the chief priests and the elders get together. See, if I'm Grissom at this point, this story isn't making a whole lot of sense. I either have centurions who know that if I fall asleep on duty, it's not a dishonorable discharge, it's a dishonorable death charge that you're receiving. Something's not right here. And if it's the other guys, then I go back to my law and order friends who eventually will check out your bank records and wonder why there was a large deposit made into your account the Sunday after this event happened. To be honest, I think the fact that they went and asked Pilate's permission, that Pilate sees this as a capital situation, and that there's an assurance to these guards that if Pilate gets upset, we got more money where this came from and we'll take care of Pilate, which is consistent with what we know of the governor of Judea at that time. I think these are Roman guards. I think these are Roman guards who knew they were going to die, and they went back and told the truth. Notice they came back and reported what had happened. They reported the events Matthew talks about. There's an earthquake, the stone rolls away, something happens, and suddenly there's an angel sitting around, and we just thought you all should know that we went and looked in the tomb, and there's nobody there. What do you want us to do about this? And the answer is, well, let's create a story. Let's cover it up. So now it's time to go to the scene. Let's go and investigate. Let's meet with them out there as they're starting to roll the stone away. They're going to take it off for evidence. Now let's get the forensic guys involved. And now they start to tell you this story. Well, what happened was, in the middle of the night, we were asleep, and his disciples, they came and stole the body. Question number one. How do you know it was his disciples that came to steal the body? Because in the middle of the night, you were asleep. How do you know it was the disciples? See, the story's starting to fall apart. And we came and looked, and the best we can see outside of your sandal prints is maybe 6 sets of footsteps. And 4 of these look like they're women's shoes. Now, are his disciples wearing high heels, or are there a bunch of women in his group of disciples? Now, how many disciples did you say he had? 11. Now, okay, wait a minute. We've got 6 sets of footprints. One looks like he's running. The other guy looks like he slid in right behind the other guy. And I got 4 sets of women's footprints. Now, I don't know about you, but if this is the advice we've got, my question is, if they've stolen the body, how will we not be fooled again by these guys? I mean, they're able to cover their tracks real nice. And where are the sets of fingerprints? Because this is a huge boulder. The way the tomb is set up is you build the tomb downhill. So you grab the giant stone, you roll it down, then they put a seal on top of it. They sealed it in some way. You got to pry the seal loose. You got to somehow get leverage enough to get the rock out far enough to get the guys behind the rock and push it up. There is no forensic evidence for this, folks. But let's consider it's not the Roman centurions for just a second. Let's consider it's the temple guard. The temple guard works where? Temple guard, right? A security guard, a mall security guard works at the mall. A temple guard works at the... See, they should bring back those SAT questions that are, if this is like this, then... I mean, because we can do that. Temple guard is to temple, as mall guard is to. You know, cat. No, mall. All right, we're all there. 7 weeks after this resurrection event, does anybody know what happens? 50 days from this day is a day called Pentecost, because it comes Penta, 50 days after the Passover celebration. 50 days later, anybody know what happens at the temple? These guys who supposedly stole the body of Jesus, real bright criminals that they are, show up at the temple and do what? They proclaim in a very loud voice to over 3,000 people who respond that Jesus Christ 50 days ago did what? Raised from the dead. Now, I may not be the most brilliant man on the face of the planet, but if you have known fugitives who have stolen a body and they show up where you work, don't you think this would be a good opportunity to take them into custody if they stole a body that was so important that the only reason you were put out there was to make sure they didn't steal the body? Shouldn't there have been a follow-up in this crime? These guys don't just do that. They continue to go around Jerusalem for months and days and years proclaiming this message. Now, one of 2 things has happened. They've either hidden the body in another grave, or what? They're carrying a dead body around and hiding it from place to place. Don't you think that if you really wanted to follow up on this story, that you don't have to create the story, all you got to do is bust them with the body? I'm thinking this story is starting to fall apart. I'm starting to think the evidence is not necessarily there the way they want it to be.